Today is July 19th, 2023, 9 o'clock work session. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, at this time, I am going to ask retired Judge Reed Rohr to come on up and do a blessing for us today. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Judge. How are you? Get my notes out here.
All good. Welcome.
If I didn't, I think I would maybe inform everybody of their rights. That's what I usually did. Let's all pray to the God of all people. We confess publicly that you are a good God. We praise you for the freedom from want that most of us enjoy. We also pray for the poor and the oppressed, who still have many unfulfilled wants and needs. Please remind us, God, of the brevity of our lives and our total dependence on you. Please grant wisdom and determination to the Fiscal Court today. Rid us all of pride and satisfaction. Thank you for the willingness of these men and women today to sacrifice the time that they have with their families and their careers just to serve us. God, grant them the courage of their convictions in spite of whatever pressures they may feel. Above all, God, please grant them kindness and mercy and grace in all of their dealings. Thank you, God. Amen. Appreciate it, brother.
All righty. Before we go on to public comments, I would like to just wish our very own Squire Kelly Dykes a happy birthday today. Any public comments? Seeing no public comments, we're going to go into Judge's report. We've had a lot of committee meetings. Administrative Services met on July 10th, working on our administrative code. Energy Committee met on the 10th with the Energy Savings Group, and they're working on some more documentation to put together before they come to the full court. Road Committee met on July 11th. We're working on the bids for the road department. It's currently out, so that will be put up on our website also. I went and spoke at the Optimist Club on the 11th, just talking about what we've completed in the first 7 months as a court. I also want to thank the Franklin County Extension Office for a great Farm City Field Day. I want to thank the Harrod family, Firmly Rooted Flowers. They did a phenomenal job. It was a beautiful setting out there. Couldn't ask for a nicer day. On Sunday, we had a really nice rededication ceremony for the survey of the Hancock-Taylor survey. That was a very nice, they did a whole weekend event, on, I think Andrew, he has some pictures of field day up there. Sorry, I'm just moving on. Exciting news is on Millville Road, Glens Creek. They've started the construction down there. The state awarded that, and I believe they started on Monday. Said it will be completed by this fall. So they're reshoring the road there, JW's district. So that will be exciting because that's going to help take some pressure off of Duncan Road once that's reopened. So that'll be nice to see that opened again. This past weekend, it was a huge event, softball event at Lakeview. I want to thank Charlie Lewis and his staff for helping with all that. And special big shout out to Deputy Jack Kennedy, Marty Antle, our electrical inspector, and Charlie for working on some logistical problems we had with that tournament, but it turned out great. I went by there on Sunday. A ton of people. I mean, I don't think people realize what these economic development tournaments do. I think they estimated 1,000 people were in our community from other communities just for this one tournament, so that was a great thing. Last night, everybody showed up, and the fair started last night. It was a great turnout. Squire Sebastian did a beautiful job singing the national anthem. They had, the pageants there last night and things like that. I know it's $10, I think, tonight, tomorrow night, and then Friday, Saturday night's $15 at the gate. to get in, but there's a ton of rides. I think there's more food this year than I remember seeing. There's a picture of us. Sorry, Kelly. I know Kelly was stuck in Louisville, couldn't make it, but we had a nice time. It was a nice event. And then, Mitzi, will you please come up and share the last thing with the court that you would like to present?
Sure. Good morning. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Court. So you've probably seen a previous email from me about turning bare feet into learning feet. As you can see on the screen, Mandy Heacock is the Youth Services Coordinator and the Frisky Coordinator for the 5th District. They do a lot of work with our kids. And I learned about this in a CARES Coalition meeting, actually. And I thought, that might be a great way for the county and the court to kind of help out with this initiative. So here we are. It's pretty much middle to the end of summer approaching, and a lot of parents take their kids back to school shopping, and some kids don't have that opportunity. They start back to school with the same pair of shoes they had last year. So I was thinking that we could collect some shoes. They're looking for youth size 9 up to adult size 12. And I think in my email I said adult size 11, but adult size 12. And I'm going to have a bin in my office. I've already collected a few pairs. I think we can really knock this out of the park. They're hoping to collect at least 500 pairs of shoes. So the background of this is it started back in 2018. She was having a conversation with her principal of what they were seeing in their school and what they were hearing from other schools. The important part is you do not have to be a Franklin County school student. This is for all kids in Franklin County. So we're going to share this on our Facebook page, send it out. I'm actually going to send it out to all county staff today, but I just wanted to come today and just talk about it and get it out into our community. I'm sure there are a lot of people in our community that would love to take part in this as well. And if you want to volunteer to actually hand out the shoes, there's a volunteer sign-up link that I can share as well. So thank you for letting me talk about that, and let's do this for our community. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Mitzi. All righty, at this time, I'm going to ask, it looks like Mr. Stephen Hawkinsmith's here to give us a road department update. Good morning, Stephen.
Good morning, Court. For the last couple of weeks, we've been mowing, mow trimming, chipping, culvert repair, and install animals, a few soft spots, and yard waste.
Any questions for Stephen?
I say JW does.
How's yard waste going?
Pretty good. It slowed down a little bit. Last week, we had 21 city, 11 county, and we're doing it today. I don't know. I don't know about today.
Did you all have the opportunity to, I think it's out for bid now, is that right? For the mow trim, and you have something else, snow
It's
equipment?
getting
things
ready
like
to
that?
be.
Okay.
Getting ready to be.
Has that been released for bid yet or not?
Not yet. I think we're going to try to have the bid open August the 3rd.
So it's out there though?
Yeah, getting ready to be.
Yeah, okay. All right. Andrew, I want to make sure we get that on our website also for anybody who's interested in bidding on those items. Any other questions? Squire Tanner, did you raise your hand?
No, not really. I just wanted to make a comment that it's cold and coming indoors and you know, all for more trash, more limbs.
More tree limbs, okay.
Good deal. Stephen, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Moving on to minutes from our regular meeting on July 6th. Any questions? Seeing none, we're going to move on to next. I believe we have our clerk with us. Mr. Hancock, are you presenting on this quarterly report?
Okay,
Morning, Jeff.
Morning, how are you guys?
Good, how are you?
So far, year to date, we are running as expected. We've been through the larger portion of our tax collection year. Right now, we're sitting at $399,000 in excess fees. Our total year to date is supposed to be projected at 482. I expect it to be just a little bit higher than that, but not much more. We also have, do you know how much we have in excess in storage fees? I'd say it's around 250 at this point in storage fees. So that was what you would be traditionally seeing. That's almost been a full year since we started that program. We started July the 13th of last year. That money, some of it is already allocated for our record retention, which we will have everything imaged online and available to the public before September the 1st. We were supposed to have it well before that. We were hoping they were going to shut us down July the 3rd and actually download it all, but they weren't able to do it. So at some point, we will have to shut our office so they can download our entire computers and get everything uploaded all in one day. But when we do that, we'll give you plenty of notice what's going on. But we will be the first county that I'm aware of that will have every single image available for the deeds, land records, marriage licenses, everything back to existence of Franklin County. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty happy, but I look for us to be able to take, that's a $150,000 process that we did. We'll still have some money left, and we can talk about maybe doing some qualification of your all's documents and stuff of that nature after that. We'll be pretty well caught up and ahead of the curve to meet the state regulations. Any questions?
Jeff, I just want to say thank you. I think it's a huge thing for Franklin County to have all those things online, and to be able to be the first county in the state is commendable. So thank you for taking that lead.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. All righty, next agenda item, agreement with Life Check Systems.
Good morning, Court. This is a second leg of our phone and tablet system that we added on, and I negotiated for this company to be paid for by our phone system. But I want to introduce Captain Waldron and Captain Pullen. They're our IT guys. So it's a little technical how this works, so I want them to explain it.
I had them on my sheet, that's why I didn't introduce you. I wasn't sure. I haven't met Mr. Waldridge yet, that's why I was asking Jack. I was like, somebody's supposed to present. Good morning, gentlemen, how are you all doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So basically, the way this works is it's cell phone based. These cell phones are provided through the company. They're locked cell phones, so if an inmate were to get their hands on them or something, they can't do anything with them. They're not able to be jailbroke or anything of that nature. And it basically works just like, say, Google Pay or Apple Pay would with your NFC tags. We'll have these at your cell locations, all of your different points. The deputy will simply walk up, scan that, and then they'll have a number of options that they can choose. If it's an observation cell, then they can choose, what the inmate's doing. They can manually type it in. It will be assigned to the deputy. And then there will be generalized ones that will be in the regular pods that won't necessarily need those, sleeping options or whatever the case is. So it's a way to track things. It's a little better way to hold the deputies accountable and to show that we're actually doing our jobs and when we did them and how that accountability works. And then they're pretty durable cell phones and things. That's kind of the way that works. I guess best thing to do is open it up for questions, and then we can answer anything that y'all might have.
Questions from the court? Squire Sebastian.
I noted in item 4 of the agreement that the combined public communications, that's that CPC group, they're going to cover the cost to startup, right? And so the startup cost is 13, almost 14 grand. And then there's a total of 24 monthly payments at $1,660 that they're going to cover.
Right.
So then, when I look over here at item 5, it notes that the county and the county, in this instance being the jail, and CPC are going to determine and direct who the vendor will invoice later if there are costs above that. So who really is going to make that decision? Is the jail going to make that decision? Because it says it's going to work with CPC to make that decision.
Right. It would just depend on what actually that would entail as far as additional equipment would be. As far as replacement of a cell phone or something, then that would be handled through us. But pretty much it's all inclusive as far as the contract goes. They'll take care of all the startup costs, all the initial costs, and then they're going to be using CPC's network within the jail to launch their Wi-Fi points. So there shouldn't be any additional cost with that.
Some additional costs, like for the chips,
Yeah,
and then
and-
if there's an overage of data use, and we're sort of not gonna know how that's gonna work. I'm presuming at this point, and certainly Wi-Fi's gonna have to be up all the time in order for it to work. So are we gonna have some kind of redundant Wi-Fi there that's gonna make sure that?
Right, we have, the way that it works is, we have Wi-Fi points already through the jail because it works with the tablets and the chirps and things through CPC. So if for instance, let's say power outage or something like that, Wi-Fi goes down, it will store, and then when Wi-Fi comes up, it will feed that information to it. So data usage in the phone is pretty much, it's not used, is the way that we've kind of opted to do that. Because of the Wi-Fi points, we won't need that.
And certainly we haven't implemented it. The training, are they pretty, easily understandable about how the technology works? I mean, most people are so used to using handheld devices for a number of things, but it talks about additional training, and if they have to come here, how expensive that's gonna be, and as people cycle in and out, maybe on the staff.
So the way that they've implemented that, we've already went through one training course. What they're basically doing is they're training us, and then we'll in turn train the staff. So, and we'll develop our own training program based on their materials and kind of hone that into the jail itself. So that's kind of what we're in the process of doing now. So they're very simple systems. It's literally, you come in, you put in a code, you're ready to go. And then you scan, it gives you an option. So there's not much user error as far as it goes. It's just navigating the system itself.
Okay. Do we know, and the thing is, my presumption is does CPC throughout the jail, do we have like an unlimited cellular data plan so that as we attach this on there, we're probably not gonna bounce up into some kind of, ceiling for a data plan?
It's all Wi-Fi based.
Okay.
So yeah,
It
there's
just talks about, going over with cellular
and they put that
data
in
use.
there because some facilities throughout the country that they may be in, they may not have the Wi-Fi points that CPC does, and they have partnered with CPC to use their Wi-Fi points, and they've worked that out behind the scenes. So there's, 100% Wi-Fi coverage within the jail due to the system that we already have in place.
Okay. Is there an estimate for the fees that this may accumulate, and have the fees been built into the, okay. I'm sorry, that has to do with monthly data fee. No, I'm good, that's it. I had 2 or 3 questions about the cellular data plan. I was a little worried about that because it talks about that in a couple
Yeah,
places.
they put that in there because this company's in jails throughout the country, some small, some large. And in this circumstance, we're blessed to kind of have the Wi-Fi points that we do based on CPC's install, so.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. This states that the agreement may automatically be renewed. A lot of things can happen and a lot of things change over a 2-year time.
Right.
Is that something that needs to come back up or at least be discussed?
Well, it's something that we can look at. If I'm not mistaken, this does partner with the CPC contract, don't it, Jake?
Sir?
It partners with the time frame on the CPC contract.
No, it's actually shorter.
Okay.
Our CPC contract is 4 years, this is 2 years.
Yeah, so we'll have an out. So if it doesn't work, we can simply let them know when we're done. So it's something we'll constantly be monitoring when they first put it in.
Thank
And
you.
this one lapses before the end of the fiscal year, so we can make some changes if we need to, money-wise.
Squire Tanner.
My question may be for the county attorney more than, on item number 18 on this sheet. It says, do you have that, Max? Is that acceptable to you? Especially the last paragraph when it says, the county shall indemnify LCS for any claims, damages, and/or costs, including reasonable attorney fees arising from the county's use of LCS technology.
decide to file suit against the county for, I guess, a deputy jailer not monitoring property properly, and they bring this company in that, you know, the county will indemnify them and provide.
So it basically
representation.
just gets them out in case there is some type of liability situation where somebody's passed away or something, then the burden of proof lays on us to provide the documents and the reports and things that the system provides.
Are you satisfied with that?
I am. I mean, it's a well,
Squire Wisman.
The contract's based on our bed capacity, and we have 300 beds listed as capacity, but only 8 devices. Do you see that this contract as is going to meet our need, do you think?
Yes,
With the number of
it does.
devices?
The number of devices that they put in there is way above the amount that we actually need for the facility.
Number 7 lists a NFC tagged ID card that's an optional item for $1 per card that cannot be reused, but I don't see that in the fee structure. Are we opting for that?
We're not
Or
using
not?
it at this time.
Okay. And then,
If we do decide to use that, we already do arm bands, we would just replace the arm bands.
Yeah.
okay. Final thing is the number 12, the 60-day trial period. If we decide we want to cancel the contract, it says it will return all equipment undamaged. That seems to insinuate that if we decide to cancel the contract and all the equipment is broken, we're responsible to pay for it. Could you
They're not.
verify?
CPC's already paid for it.
Yeah.
Okay, just to verify. That's all. Thanks.
Bob Blackburn.
Yeah, you just mentioned NFC tags, and you weren't going with that option. Up in the pay fee, it does say 200 NFC tags.
Well,
At
that-
$3.
it's a different thing. The NFC tags are actually what's mounted on the walls
Okay.
by the cells. The ID card works the same technology, it's just an ID band or card.
We have found though that wristbands do not stay on.
Yeah, so it's almost, it would be a really big challenge to keep
And the
that.
location tag goes on the wall, so.
Yeah, so it's riveted into the wall, and they're easily replaceable. And you just assign these inside the system to that cell, and then once you scan that cell, it will populate and show who's there, and then you pick the person and go through there.
I could ask a question. Who manages all the information?
We'll it's stored in their system, and then we'll manage it as far as looking and making sure there's administrative staff that are administrators inside that system.
And then how long will they hold that information for? Like if something were to happen, like can they go back for a month or two
Quite a
or?
while.
Okay. I just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
they said multiple years.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, perfect.
I thought the contract said 2 years somewhere, but I'm not seeing it.
Any other questions for the gentleman?
In item 2, it talks about 2 years of the contract. Number 2.
Number 6, debt retention.
Once we get this up and running, I'd like for y'all to come look at it. It's pretty neat.
Perfect.
This is a great thing. I think
Yeah.
this is really.
Gentlemen, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty. Next, thank you, Jake. Next, I would like to introduce Karen Leverance. Did you wear a cape today, Karen? No cape?
No.
Karen is with the Bluegrass ad, so take it away.
This is the agreement for admin, correct?
This is
There's
the
a resolution.
resolution, Farmdale Sanitation District regarding the Farmdale SD Interceptor Sewer Phase 1A project. Is that
I
right?
assume this is the resolution for the admin agreement. So the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant that was awarded to the Fiscal Court on behalf of the Sanitation District, that funding source does require a certified administrator, and so this resolution would be to approve an agreement between the Fiscal Court and Bluegrass Ad to administer those funds. And the
Any-
cost of that admin would come out of the grant itself.
Do you know what that fee is?
It's $50,000.
Yep. Squire Sebastian.
Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, you're welcome.
You know, this is a pretty exciting development for the southwest portion of Franklin County that's served by standalone neighborhood package plants. for sanitary sewer. You know, Farmdale Sanitation was put in place in 2004, and it currently serves about 1,100 households. And those plants, they suffer frequent outages due to outdated and failing equipment. So when the operation of those package plants is interrupted, you know, sewage does seep into neighborhood yards, and it can flow into waterways and, you know, exacerbate health and safety issues that are already concerns with environmental issues that are there, and potential for disease transmission. So this is a big thing. So these funds, as I understand it, are for phase one of the project, right? And it needs to be very clear that this is for Coolbrook and Evergreen, and Edgewood, right? It's Coolbrook and Edgewood.
Yes.
And so those are two that frequently have quite a few issues. Squire Tanner, I'm sure, can also agree that we, you know, hear frequently from, you know, individuals in those neighborhoods to reach out to us. So in reviewing this agreement, in item 1A and item 10, it calls the Farmdale Sanitation District the Farmdale County Sanitation District. Can we clean that up before we actually
Yep.
sign this agreement, just so it's, you know, everything's consistent all the way through? I think.
Yes, ma'am. No problem.
I think that was just the only
Yeah, I
thing for
think
me
that
with
was
this.
a victim of search and replace.
I understand that. I do understand that. I completely understand. But this is a good thing. This is going to move this forward and really help those two neighborhoods immediately.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Squire. Any other questions for Karen? Squire Wisman.
Judge, the contract, I just wanted to verify that the agreement term is for 5 years to close out the full extent of this program. Is there a requirement that the grant is closed within that period, and are we following, or do we know that we're following the timeline of the CDBG funds?
Typically, with the construction period that we're expecting, that's a reasonable amount of time to close out the project. That said, if it does go beyond that, then it's not unreasonable to amend the contract to extend that deadline.
The only other thing I was thinking of is that I don't see any kind of reporting requirement for meeting deadlines for reporting on the federal grant. Can you elaborate a little bit on what you
So
think the
there
communication
are
process will be?
a couple annual and biannual reporting labor requirements, and then contracting requirements that are submitted directly to DLG, and then DLG files them with the federal, with HUD on our behalf. But those will be part of the project files as well, and that's part of what we would do as administrators, is maintaining those files and then making sure that you all have access to any copies that you would want as well.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Karen, on behalf of Franklin County, I just want to thank you for all your hard work on this. You know, like Squire Sebastian said, this is a huge project in our community. It's been going on for many, many years, and I think we're finally to the point we get to be the ones to fix it.
Yeah, it's exciting to see it move forward finally.
Thank you very much. All righty, next I'm going to invite, looks like Jeff and Robert, or just Jeff? I'm sure you all decided easily who's coming up.
First and foremost, before we even get into what the reapportionment looked like, the board members that you all put in front of us to do this, I can't give them enough praise. They showed up for the meetings, they really understood what they were supposed to be doing, and they really were the epitome of public servants. They showed up, they wanted to be involved, they wanted to understand, they wanted to know why they were doing it. So that's Paola Rowe, former magistrate Freddie Goins, and Dr. Tope. They all brought a very interesting perspective. I really think that if you see them out, you need to thank them for what they did, the time and the effort they put forward in Franklin County. I also like to thank Robert Hewitt, Planning Director, which is going to get up here and help me in a second, and James Wisenhunt from the Bluegrass Ad. If it wasn't for James's ability to move lines and understand where the actual census blocks lied, and his tool that he has made the whole process very understandable and very easy to go through. So I want to thank the committee. Once again, the 3 voting members, Pale LaRoe, former magistrate Freddie Goins, and Dr. Tope. And then the non-members were myself, Robert Hewitt, and James Wisenhunt. And then my staff did a really nice job of making sure that we were covering all of the reporting side of it. So I want to thank them. On the reapportionment, and I don't have the ordinance in front of me, I really wish I did, because I could give you the exact. Here's the ordinance. We took a really hard look at what it looks like to get the most equal districts of constituents. And that's not voters, that's not registered voters, that's constituents, the people that you actually represent. It'll be the first time ever that we are this close to an actual complete equality of constituent voters, or constituents. I gotta take the word voters out of it. You will be representing the most equal portion that we've ever had in Franklin County. What's really good about this is that we understand where our problems have lied in the past, and part of it was through the VRS system. So I got the folks at the State Board of Elections to agree to meet with James Wisenhunt at the Bluegrass Ad, and we're going to be able to turn each and every voter and make sure that they are correctly registered by wiping out our VRS system and starting over with a brand new VRS system that has all been coded correctly. This is something that's needed to be done for years. We were using a movable map and a stagnant information for voters. This would be the first time that they both overlap. This will be great to make sure that we don't have any, and it will only be for the one day that it starts. As soon as voters start moving, we could have complications if they're not coded right, because there will be human error in it, and I would like to get rid of that at some point. But right now we can't, because the system's just not evolved enough to do that. But for one day, we will have an absolute 100% correct voter registration system. And I'm very happy about that. I think that will, if we start with a great product, we ought to be able to hold a good product. So I'm very excited about that. If you'll look over the districts, some of the changes that were made throughout the period, we were able to completely move K-State, something that it's been a divided magisterial district and didn't really have very good representation. And when I say very good representation, nobody knew who represented it, because the dorms sit on one side of the road and actual university sits on the other side of the road, and there was a divide going right down the middle. So nobody really knew who represented the students. We've gotten that narrowed down into one district. We were able to, the divide that we've all known about forever, the east over west over, we were able to clean that up. We were able to take a population divide and pull out the Maples and move them over. We were able to clean up the bottom of the Home Street corridor, which I was really happy to get that where it divided out, going down and separating Home Street from the Thornhill. So overall, the map, and it's still, there are parts of it that we would like to fix. The demographic area is very large still for the 6th district is still a very large area, but it is the fact that it is most of Ball Knob and most of the St. John's region is a very rural region. It's very densely populated, and we still have, as area goes, a very large, along with Scotty's district up into the Schweitzer area, Owington Road area, and it's based on population. Overall, they did an amazing job. They understood what they were supposed to be doing. We got to divide out some roads. There are some roads we can't divide out, guys, and I would love to tell you in an ideal world we got to do that, but when you have population divides and you're starting to try to count households, and then you're going, well, that's 2.5 people. I was looking for accuracy. I was not looking for making everybody happy. Now, I also want to make sure that you understand, I wanted everyone in Franklin County to know who represents them. That was important to me. We will be sending out at the cost, we'll do it out of election fees. In November, 1st of December, I will be sending out a postcard everybody that has a magisterial district will know who their magistrate is, because we're going to mail everybody in Franklin County, every single household, we're going to mail them a card of representation. It's going to tell them who the county judge is, who their magistrate is, who their sheriff is, all the way down to who the president is. So we want people to know who represent them. We want them to know how to get a hold of you. We think that's important. Once again, I can't say enough good things about what the reapportionment group did, and how they used a professional manner in doing it. So I was very proud of our group, and I couldn't have the mapping, there was no way I'd do this without Robert and without James Wisenhunt. I just can't do it. That's not my forte. So I was very happy with everything they did.
Any questions for Jeff? Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for being here. This resolution lists District 3, the population is 8,695, but the mapping document lists the population is 8,496. Which one's they need to be consistent, so help us out here.
That's a great question. I'm going to bring up
It
the technical.
absolutely is, and we like representing people too. It's our.
Yeah.
Would you mind to restate your question?
Sure. The resolution lists District 3, the population is 8,695, but the mapping document shows the population as 8,496. Which one?
Well, it'll be what's on the map, so I will amend the
Somebody
ordinance
clean that
to
up.
reflect, yes. I will clean that up.
Thank you. That's what the map says. Can, you want to take it or you want me to take it?
If I
Squire Tanner.
This is directed to Jeff, I guess, or Robert, either one, in District 5, that you did separate and include Mitchell Boulevard and Roscoe Court, but there's 4 houses on the back side. They're not gonna know who their magistrate is. Is there any reason why Sherry can't have those? It's just 4.
It's a population divide.
How many people live in them 4 houses?
Well, that was the problem. When you start dividing census tracts, you have to count, and it becomes a very unsophisticated way to do it. You start giving 2.5 people per households, and we understand the representation is very important, but we also understand the data being clean is very important. Meaning, I don't know if that's a household of 10, or if that's a household, and if we just do the 2.5 that is offered throughout the average, I don't feel like it gives us very good data, very clean data.
So
I would prefer, and I would prefer having exact data and going out and making sure we're going out and talking to the 4 houses and explaining representation than I would not having correct data on the actual mapping.
You're gonna have a hard time convincing those 4 people that even though you're gonna send them a postcard, they're across the road and on each side of them is not District 5, it's District.
I don't disagree. There's not a perfect answer to every situation, and we could go back in. Actually, you all have the right at this point to deny the map. I mean, there's 2 options. You get to accept and take the map in, or you get to not take the map in, and you get to write your own map. You can put whoever you want, wherever you want. You all have that right. I don't. There are things that I can't divide. You can do what you want to. I don't have that option. And I'm not trying to put it off, but we have to either have natural divide lines or census tract basis to put our reapportionment information. We have to follow a base set of rules, and unfortunately, if you decide as a group of magistrates that's not what you want to do, and you want to give U10 and U10 and U10, you're allowed to do that. I don't have that option. And it's an unfortunate situation. I agree that the 4 houses on the back of Michael Boulevard are not in an ideal situation. I don't disagree with that statement. But I didn't put the population and census tracts together either.
Is that what the divide is?
Yeah.
It's a census tract divide over top of that street?
Yep.
Sebastian.
So, earlier you talked about Kentucky State University having a divide and individuals not knowing who represents them. We're talking about an enclosed conclave neighborhood. They have the same issues on one side of the street as they have on the other side of the street.
I agree.
So it is very confusing for them. And when I first came, my first term, those streets were taken away from the first district and put in the fifth. And now, some of those neighbors are coming back to the first, and some are still gonna be in the fifth. So they are very thoughtful and mindful people. I'm not saying they will be confused, but they share similar issues in the neighborhood, so there's not a divide, and I think you characterized some issues like that with Kentucky State. So, you know, we're talking about a greater population with Kentucky State than we are with 4 houses on the backside
There
of Michael
wasn't a
Boulevard.
census tract divided Kentucky
So,
State.
Again,
You're-
you just noted from 2 individuals that represent constituents there, and very well represent those constituents. And to either of us, there's not been a boundary line distinction, because when somebody calls me from Michael Boulevard before, I never said I can't represent you or don't represent you.
Right.
But for other purposes, sometimes there are questions about that. So I have a couple of others in regard to a boundary that we share on Collins Lane. So Collins Lane is bisected.
It is bisected.
Does it remain bisected?
It is.
Okay.
There's a portion of it that's bisected.
It is.
But it's Reed Drive and it's full side of the street.
Shouldn't be Reed Drive. Should be Brookhaven, Belvoir, and part of Collins Lane, and 5 or 6 houses on Leewood. So have they changed? Has that changed?
I would have to look at this point.
Okay,
I
I just,
mean, I know
for
that-
clarity for us,
But
it's
I
just
did look
helpful.
and make sure that the streets were complete divides. So if it picked up the house on each side of the street, does that make sense? I made sure that it was all of Belvoir, and he can zoom down on it right there, it's right there.
Yeah, just the maps that we got, well, I brought mine too, but you can't read it on that map. This is gonna be easier, I appreciate the being able to zoom in
Yeah.
to help us. Because Collins Lane is bisected at one point. Leewood is bisected at a point near Collins Lane School as it goes up toward Cross Hill Drive. And then there's a Brookhaven and Belvoir in that entire neighborhood are carved out and pushed in one district where absolutely everything around them is in another district. So I just wanted to check that too, to see if it stayed the same or if it changed.
There was not much movement in the Collins Lane district.
Okay.
Because the divides were natural divides. They were streets. We could go and you could find and you could understand what they were.
Okay.
Some of the divides that we moved out, parks, some of those we pulled out.
Yep.
Some industrial areas we pulled out.
Okay.
The backside of Fiscal Court that separated Secretariat, we pulled out and made it one district. There are times when population and census blocks just won't let you cross over and take them off. And there's 2 different divides there. Some of them were natural divides that were precincts. The precinct divide that was K-State was not a census block divide. So we're not talking apples, and we have to talk apples and apples or oranges and oranges. We can't talk an apple versus an orange because they don't line up. They're not the same thing. So one's a census block divide and one was a man-made precinct divide, and they're 2 totally different things. We just basically incorporated the rest of the precinct back in and went, but a census block divide is a whole block of folks that they have already counted and they have them demographically counted that we're allowed to use as a divide with exceptions and rules.
Okay.
And
So I'm
that's-
wondering, the presumption based on what you're saying now is that Collins Lane, Brookhaven, Belvoir, and Leewood Drive kind of falls in that census
Yeah.
block as well, similar to what has happened with Michael Boulevard.
Right. And we can, I'm not against going and looking at Michael Boulevard again, folks. And can you look at is that a minor? Yes. I'm not against looking at the last 4 houses on Michael Boulevard because I did exclude Roscoe Court. But there are streets that you've asked about in the past, like Carver Lane. I can't divide those. And I don't know what it takes for James Wisenhunt to do the count. I know the count was the issue on the 4 houses on Michael Boulevard. And I know there was no natural line because of where the farm sits, and you can't use a deed as a natural boundary line. So there were some things that couldn't be done that we would have liked to have gotten done that we didn't do naturally the first time around. The 4 houses, if that is, and that's why I turn around and look at Robert, we are allowed to make minor adjustments without board approval from your reapportionment. We cannot make a major adjustment. You either have to accept it, you can do a minor adjustment, and then they can read it in as an ordinance, but you cannot do a major adjustment. A major adjustment means that you would just vote the ordinance down, do the changes yourself, and then reapply for that as your reapportionment.
This question is about future changes. I believe from recollection from years past that you don't have to draw these maps every 10, you can redo them anytime you want to. Is that correct or incorrect?
You only do a reapportionment based on population once every 10 years.
You
This one got
can't
kicked down.
change the district maps after?
You can change a precinct map by rewriting a precinct, but the precinct can't go over the population boundaries. You can't you have to have equality in representation.
I thought you can move to a redistrict anytime, basically.
You can, as far as I know, you can redraw precincts at any given time. The precinct can't go over and can't divide a magisterial district. So you can redo a precinct at any given time. You have to have reasoning for it, but you can redo a precinct. You cannot redo, the reapportionment happens once every 10 years. You're 13 years into it at this point because of COVID, and it will be redone in 7 years at this point. But it will be based on population. Once again, this is a population base of equality of population.
Squire Wisdom.
Your last statement, Jeff, are we within acceptable variance? We have a 350-person variance between the 8th and the 2nd. That's the largest, and is that within our acceptable variance? Just wanted to verify. And did the committee look at precincts, or did you individually, and how many are we ending up with?
We have not done precincts. It was too important to get the reapportionment correct before we look at precincts.
With the statements you've made about the boundaries as are, there seems to be a couple of minor adjustments that the court would like to make. So can you recap the option for us to look at making those changes if they're minor? If we want to change something, for example, of dividing a census district, is that a minor adjustment, or do we need to reject the map and start fresh with our own at that point?
Okay, so you have actual 3 options. You can approve the map as presented, or you can amend the map at your discretion, or you can reject it and create your own map without the services of the committee. Those are your 3 options. And that's all covered in KRS 67.045.
And an amendment to this map does not have to take into consideration the census districts?
You still have the rules in
It does.
KRS 67, you still have to follow that. And to address your question about, the variances.
For the specific question, sort of their district.
The KRS says no district can be greater than 10%, larger or smaller than any other. What is presented today is less than 5%.
Less than 4.
Yes.
I just did the math.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3.9.
So this is very, very tight.
It is, yeah.
So,
Did a really good job.
Squire Blackburn's next.
And that was a question I was gonna ask. I knew you all were dealing with a 10% variable, and I noticed mine was the lowest right now, but it was the highest before, and with projected growth, and we already have things on the books, it'll balance out in another year. And then in 7 years, this is gonna be a majorly needed thing to be done again.
Correct.
JW, they took into effect the fact that we knew your district was growing. It had the
Yeah.
most availability for lots and growth. And they knew that it was more likely gonna self-correct itself on anything. It made more sense to
Yeah.
go ahead and pull as much as we could.
Having the former second district magistrate on there was outstanding. I can't say enough good things about Fred. But, and you fixed the little things at the Forks that, basically weren't even known by the voters, but it was just something wrong on the books. But yeah, fixing like 4 houses.
Here's the thing, I mean, there's been that all along somewhere. I mean, you're not gonna fix that everywhere. You're just not. It's gonna be a problem somewhere, no matter what we do.
Your group really tried.
I
And I sat
I
for
know,
a
and I know
long-
all of them, and they're.
I sat for a
yeah.
long period of time with James Wisenhunt, looking at every different option of moving and where we could move stuff and how we could move stuff. And we tried to get it right. I mean, at the end of the day, we tried to get it right.
I think you all did an amazing job.
Squire Tanner?
I got a comment. I have a comment more than a question, and maybe JW's question, but
No, go ahead.
first of all, I want those 4 houses that we discussed this between Sherry and I'll be glad to serve those 4 houses. It's not that, because she would be too. It doesn't make any difference, and she already made we have a lot of common problems out there. We just dealt with one of them, the sewer, et cetera, all over, and those people call me. I'm gonna call them right back, maybe, if I can find the phone number. But anyway, and I'm sure she'll do the same thing. If it'd be more of a problem for them than it is me, or whoever the magistrate might be out there. So I'm not gonna object enough to vote no or try to amend it. I'm just making a point. Look to me like those 4 houses, or could have went with the rest of that over there. I could make it more of an argument to let me keep all of that.
I'll make a comment on this, and I think Robert, his KRS base is far superior to mine when it comes to what you can do. But minor adjustments, and you ask about a census block break, minor adjustments are the only thing that can be done, from my understanding. And this is from what I've learned through the KCCA and through KCO and everything else, is the minor adjustments. If it's 4 houses that want to be done and that makes the most sense to you guys, we'll figure out the population base. Because they still have to be equal at the end of the day. And what I mean by that is it's still got to match the census tract versus the 4 we take out of it. We got to know how many houses we took out of it, so our full population still equals 50,182. So if the 4 houses is what we need to do, I have 0 issues trying to make that happen. This was the map that the reapportionment group put in front of you to make sure that without making any other adjustments, they wanted the best equality that was available. So I think the 4 houses is not anywhere close to a major adjustment. I think it is a minor adjustment that can be made very quickly. It's going to take some math, and James Wisenhunt's going to have to do some things, and that's fine. But I think overall, the map as a whole, as an entirety, has been a really well-done process. I don't know if I answered your question or if I made it worse.
No, you did not make it worse. I feel like I'd be glad to serve anybody that's in my district. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. I mean, and if that 4 houses needs to be the way it is, that's the way it needs to be. And Candace's correct. There's nothing gonna ever be exactly like the perfect thing when you think it should be. There's gonna be certain places in 10 years from now, you figure, why would we do that?
I would think the only thing we would need on this portion would be some type of amendment language that says that that's what you would want done.
So if that could be reflected in the fiscal court minutes, that would be adequate for record keeping, in my opinion.
Okay.
So that we can, on the second reading of the ordinance, I'll make the revision to the 3rd district population that appears in the ordinance, as well as provide an amended map.
Yeah, clerk, did you get that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And one thing that's very, very important, I want everyone on the court to realize, this is not the county clerk's map, this is the fiscal court's map. Okay? Now, of course, the county clerk keeps an official copy, the court keeps an official copy, but it's your map, and if you want to amend it, you have every right to do so. Because the county clerk is the next official member on the reapportionment committee, all right? The committee themselves are the ones that vote, the county clerk just provides guidance. But I will say that this is the most accurate reapportionment map this county's ever had, because we are now using a geographic information system base for it, whereas before it was highlighters on a piece of paper glued to a board. That's what it was. So now we have the ability to, with GIS, do all kinds of other things to highlight districts and boundaries.
Squire Blackburn, you had a question?
And that was based on a written description with the highlighters. So you say you can do like a 4.5 household move. I know you had discussed, you had fixed Westover, the backside of Secretariat.
Yes.
Did you see any other situations where you might have had 4.5 or 3 or 2 or 6?
They're probably out there. I'm not going to tell you, JW, that there's not a divide out there that just...
None of them jumped out at you and you're
we-
aware?
We spent multiple hours looking at individual streets, at the individual breakdowns. We tried to find all the oddities. The only reason that the Michael Boulevard didn't get corrected was because of the census block. And just it was what it was. There was no way to write a legal description, and now they'll have to write a legal description to cut it out. But that's part of what you're paying James Wisenhunt to do. Is to figure out how to write a legal description of what he's going to go by. Does that mean he has to pick up the farm behind it? Maybe. And it's kind of the domino effect of if he has to have it to go to the creek, or he has to have it to go to the next telephone pole that he can use as a dividing line that he can write that won't change within the next 10 years, then that's what he'll have to do. But that's what you're paying him to do.
So we will be, the legal descriptions that are required to supplement the map will be done using latitude and longitude varying distances that we get off of the GIS. So
But it's still a legal description. It's
It's gonna
still
be a legal
the same
description, yes.
written legal descriptions.
correct.
Squire Tanner?
It's a procedural question. If we pass the first reading, we can amend this on the second reading. Is that not correct?
Correct.
So what I would like to do is pass this today, and you all kind of research that deal, and if it throws everything completely out of whack, we just go with the way it is. If it doesn't, we can amend it on the second reading.
We don't pass anything on first reading, he just reads it
That's
out
correct.
loud.
We don't vote.
We don't vote on
Some
anything
people do,
today.
but we don't here.
We do not.
But in regards to that, Squire Tanner, we are going to call a special meeting on July 31st because it has to be turned in by August 1. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So
90 days from May of 2023.
Squire Blackburn?
So if there are any minor changes, we need to make sure we look at addressing those today to be prepared for that 31st meeting.
Correct.
Correct. So if we can get clear direction from the court of what you'd like changed, have that reflected in the minutes, we'll provide the amendment of July 31st.
Yep.
If it's possible, it may throw it out, and you can make that decision at that time. Excuse me.
Well, since we're already, as Squire Blackburn mentioned, we're less than 5%, and so
Yeah.
we'll go up to 10.
It's a lot of variance.
So, I mean, there is some.
Got some wiggle room.
Squire Wisdom?
I was just going to commend you all. I think we did generally, except for some minute tweaks maybe here and there, it looks really good. We've divided the community into reasonable boundaries. We're using landmarks that already serve as dividers, the interstate, the river, neighborhoods that makes much more sense than they ever have historically. And we're not dividing, a big part of reapportionment, I know is federally mandated that we don't divide communities of color, for instance, or marginalized communities, and we're fixing some of that for the first time that I think has been in our history. I know when the map was redrawn, 20 years ago, there was an intent to divide the city sort of into 6 pieces equally of a pie, right? That everyone got a portion of that, but that did so at the point that it divided many communities, and streets were insensibly divided. So I think the map looks really pretty good. There's some broad tweaks that I would have maybe liked to have seen broader or more, but I think that is too much of a change. But at this point, I think everyone's going to be very clear about who represents them, and as you said, Jeff, it's important that everybody know exactly who the representative is, and this is the first time probably ever that they will be able to call after this is put in and say, who is my person? You know, I live on this side of the street or this one, and it's been blurry in the past, and you get down to some of these individual roads where things were, you know, I remember that within one of the districts, there was like one house set aside because it was moved just to make enough of a population in another precinct. But it's set completely out there by itself that made no sense. So generally, I think, or at least for the 6th district, I'm good to move with that. But if anyone has some small tweaks, then we should put that on record that you would recommend that variance.
Square Dacus.
I just want to say thank you all so much, and I want you to thank the group that you've been working with. I think it's awesome. I think you all have done a fantastic job, and again, I think it's never going to be perfect because we're not going to get to perfect. It just isn't going to ever be that way, and it's a moving target all the time. I think the most important thing we can do, as always, is educate the community. That's what we need to do, no matter where these lines are drawn. They need to know who they can call. I think that's the most important thing we can do, and so I think those postcards and putting it online and doing all those things is the most important thing we can do, no matter who their magistrate is, no matter who their, whatever, who their leadership is. They need to know who that is if they have a problem. So thank you all very much for your work. I really appreciate it.
One of the biggest advantages to this reapportionment is we now have a reproducible document. Whereas I said before, it was a map glued to a board. You couldn't copy it, you couldn't scan it. All you can do is take a photograph. Now we can isolate an individual magisterial district with a list of the streets and the addresses and say, here, this is who you represent. We can reproduce the whole map. I mean, there's so much flexibility that we have now with the technology that the county has. It's a benefit to the constituents as well as those that represent them.
Squire Tanner.
I just want to echo what Kelly said. Y'all did a great job. There's no question about it. The numbers speak for themselves. There's hardly any difference between the district, and that was your goal, make it right. And our tweak is very minor, and it's amazing that it's amazing. Or our request, it may come out, you can't do it, I don't know.
Gentlemen, thank you. And again, thank the committee for putting all that hard work in. I know it's something that's been talked about for many years, and we're finally here. So we will have the first reading today.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All righty, next I'm going to invite Chief Brian Brewer up. I believe you have a couple items. Chief, good morning.
Good morning, Board. This first item is a grant. Was looking through and just come upon this grant in the Grant Finder website, and we've never applied for it before, but it's a zero match grant. Be a great opportunity to replace some outdated equipment. We're looking at trying to replace some of our older hydraulic extrication tools with the newer battery powered stuff, so we're portable, a lot newer technology. Any questions on that?
Seeing no questions, next item.
The next item is a authorization to approve a subscription agreement for pre-planning and hydrant software. Currently, our pre-planning that we do annually is all done on paper. We have to go out and basically log everything on paper, do hand drawings, or try to do some 3D architect software, go back to station. This right here would give us the opportunity to have a cloud-based software. When they go do their pre-plan, they update the information. It's automatically saved in there, and if we have a run the next day, then that information's uploaded. Same thing with hydrants. As we update our annual hydrant testing and that information, or if the water district calls us and says, hey, this hydrant's out of service, we can go in there and document that information once we build the system, so that we know on our response, we can click on the hydrant, show us how many GPMs it flows. So be a great tool for us to be able to utilize.
Questions? Squire Sebastian.
Thank you, Judge. Chief, thank you for being here. Section 1.2 states the subscription will automatically renew for successive one-year terms, but it gives no duration except really a 30-day out clause to not renew at all. So I don't really know how many firms are in this kind of service area. Is this like the only one?
We looked at some different options.
But there are different companies in
There
the
are
service
different companies.
Okay.
And we looked at the options of some of them. This one had several of them were just a pre-planning only software. And with this one having the hydrants included, it also has some ability to integrate with our CAD system so that they can push information through this. They can actually do, once we get it all set up, they can do some routing. If someone's, needs a little bit of help routing in a district they're not as familiar with for some reason that day. So it does have some different options, and we will evaluate that. It also gives us the ability to print reports off annually for tracking all our records.
Okay, the only, I guess I just strongly urge this body to put a finite number of renewals in our agreements, because as we know from talking about E911, that was put in place in 1993, just ad infinitum, renewal after renewal. That's been 30 years, and we've not looked at it since. So I'm going to strongly urge us to put a finite number of renewals and agreements. It's just wise for us to check that business landscape to ensure we get the best quality services at the best available price at that moment, because technology like this changes so rapidly.
Absolutely.
We don't know what new companies may come into that business landscape. And I mean, that's just, a wise business decision. So, in that regard, I'd ask the judge for us to start reviewing all of those contracts that are old, because we could find more contracts that have been in place for 30 years and, we're just not sure, about how it's beneficial to our community, constituents, et cetera. So, we just need to be actively and mindfully negotiating the best quality services at the best price. And because of the technology landscape, that changes a lot. So I have a question about, and I don't know what to say, and maybe our county attorney could give us some advice if we need to look at things every maybe 2 years or every 3 years or something, just to kind of have a finite number of renewals in here so that we have to come back and look at the agreement.
That would be up to your all's discretion on how you all want to do.
Max, if it's okay, I want to ask clerk, is there a way that we can, I don't know how the contracts are filed, is there a way that, every 6 months or every year or something, we go through the contracts, and are they filed together, like all these contracts that continue?
They are saved by a calendar year,
Okay.
so
that's
I
something we
can
take-
I can go through each year and figure out what's
I think
Let's do.
that'd be good to put on kind of the homework deal, and then we can take that to a committee meeting to start looking at some contracts.
okay.
And for what it's worth, Squire Sebastian, our goal would be to annually check that market, see if there's a better option. Because they'll send a notification every year when it's coming up on time to renew, just to make sure that they are still staying competitive in that market.
And that's just one of the things. I think it's just being protective of the best available services at the best price, knowing that the landscape of technology changes. I just think this body's trying to be mindful of those things. So I'm just going to advocate for that, but, the rest of the body has to, that's a body decision, not a single decision. So I still have a question in regard to item 5, support. It's sort of a vague, lukewarm attempt at a service level agreement. So I'm going to ask the fire department to negotiate an actual service level agreement for deliverables and timeframes, just for your protection. that of our citizens, because it's sort of like, well, we'll sort of, we understand that they're going to give our best efforts to classify the urgency of support. Well, support that you give is pretty daggone urgent.
Correct.
So,
And I've been in contact with them talking about, that was one of the questions, if we have an issue, are we gonna have that help? Which they have,
yeah,
their base software is not very difficult to navigate. As long as we have internet access, there shouldn't be much of a problem.
which is great. But this just sort of skims the surface. Again, it's just this tepid ability to say, yes, we have a service level agreement in place. Well, that's lukewarm at best. And I have just one more question. In regard to 6.5, the choice of law, I'm going to ask the fire department, our county attorney, to discuss the venue for this agreement. Because the terms and deliverables, they're all here in Franklin County. They're not in Texas. I bring this up every time. I always want the forum and the venue to be right here. So, I just bring that up.
I did speak with them on the choice of law. That's standard for them. They really don't like to move outside of that. If that's a deal breaker for the court,
It may be, I don't know. I have to ask the body. I guess my only comment is, if you've discussed it, that's a good thing. I don't know, county attorney, if there's a way to add a little more heft to that conversation or not. But I just bring that up for that reason.
When you say heft, what do you mean by heft? I mean, if we've got a corporation, it's been discussed that they're unwilling to change the choice of laws provision, then that's going to be one of those situations where this may not be the company that the body chooses to go for. I mean, that's Straw's choice as far as that goes. I mean, so if they're unwilling to amend the choice of laws provision or a choice of form.
I'm not sure, if there's a conversation between, attorneys as to why. Sometimes there's a little more room for that clause to be further discussed rather than just me, not being in that legal world. Sometimes there is a little more room for that. So I only add that for that reason.
My guess is they want the choice of laws being in Texas for the same reason you want the choice of laws being in Franklin County.
Probably
I mean,
so. But
that's.
I understand that, but as the client,
I understand.
you understand the client, that's an issue for the client.
Everybody wants to play along.
That's right.
That's exactly it. So I just bring those points up. Thank you.
This is the software, correct?
Yes.
This is a cloud-based software that we're talking about.
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that that's what we're talking about here. My guess is any cloud-based software company is going to want that as well. They probably serve lots of places in the United States. I would bet that you're not going to find it any different with any cloud-based software company that you give a shot. I think it's I'm guessing you're not going to find it any different with any other company. That's my guess.
Chief, if I could ask just to clarify so the public knows. So currently, our county fire department has no software to monitor fire hydrants that are, out of order and things like that, correct?
Correct. Currently, we have just a hydrant book and pre-planned books that are in the apparatus.
Okay, so very outdated. So this would bring us up to 2023, that you all know if you're going out on emergency response and there's a fire, I'm just using fire hydrants as an example, but you would know before that truck leaves the station that you all need to do an audible and figure something else out, or take a pumper truck because there's no water available, so it could ultimately save somebody's home.
Correct. So, currently our protocol is a lot of times we'll have someone that's not on the response, that's at their station. They'll go get their hydrant book, because when you're responding to a fire call, trying to get everything ready, reading your CAD updates off of the CAD, and preparing for that response, calling in all your resources that you're going to need, it's difficult to get through that hydrant book and pull that hydrant, find the hydrant in there, the street name and all that stuff. So this would give them the opportunity to be able to just pop it up on their phone real fast, or the CADs that we have, or the MDTs that we have in the truck. They'll pull that information up from anywhere they have internet access.
I think it's a great thing. Squire Westman.
Judge, I'll echo some of Squire Sebastian's comments. I'm concerned, this is the fourth contract we've had recently that has an automatic renewal clause in it, and I'm never a fan of in particular in the format of our fiscal court that is actively reviewing minute, minuscule expenditures, that we don't have a regular renewal period or review period for contracts. And I'd almost go as far as to say is I would like perhaps this court to direct our staff that any future contract that comes before us has a maximum of one renewal, automatic renewal, so that if it expends over a 4-year period, that every court has to review every contract at least once during the term of the court. So perhaps we can add a clause for a single renewal, so that sometimes these contracts that are short need to kind of get up and feel it out for a period of 2 years before you decide what you want to do, and then maybe you need that other following 2-year period to explore other options. So just a comment for that, but also we're talking about going to digitized, as everyone is, digitized formats for everything. But I'm always cognizant that systems go down, satellites go down, cyber attacks happen. Our community was recently a victim of a cyber attack that caused some chaos. So I suppose it's more of a comment, Chief, but a little bit of a question about, I want to make sure we still keep some antiquated backup systems for when those things happen. And can you speak maybe to what you have in mind then if we go to a digitized system and you're out in Bald Knob and a satellite goes down and you cannot access something like this? Do you have any thoughts about what kind of backup systems? Is there a protocol to keep the books that you update every month or something like that? Or
So this software has the ability to download, pull reports off of that. So we would have reports that we would keep as backup with all the pre-planned information, basic information for all these units. So that would still be kept on file if we did have an issue.
Great. Just more of I'm glad to hear that is part of this, but any kind of contract going forward with a digital system, I'd like to make sure that we have some physical paper backup, for especially life-saving fire, first response kind of technology. Thanks.
Squire Tracy.
So,
Microphone, please.
Thank you, Chief, for being with us. So basically what you're saying is you're going to go through, you're going to scan, it's going to be easy to keep up with. Once you do District 3 fire hydrants, you'll download it, you'll print them out, you'll update your book, and you've got it on this, and you've got it in a hard copy as well. And then the next time you go back and you do District 3, you're going to scan them, you're going to update it, you're going to go back, you're going to print them out. You're just going to replace what was in the book, right?
Right, and the goal, we may be able to not necessarily have to keep it in a book, but we can keep it in a digitized format on the MDTs. It's saved, that way you're not doing all the printing. So that's one thing that we're trying to get away from is the huge books. And if you ever look in any of the fire apparatus, our pre-planned books, some of them are that thick.
So there's going to be backup. That's the question.
Yes, there is going to be
Good
backup.
deal.
All right. Chief, thank you. Let's move to the next one, please.
And the next item, authorization to advertise for sealed bids for self-contained breathing apparatus. If you'll recall, the fire department did have some funding in the budget this year to replace a portion of our SCBA's. We're working on doing the bid specs on those, and we're just wanting to go ahead and get the ball rolling with that and go ahead and get the authorization to advertise for those sealed bids when we're ready.
Squire Tracy.
Do you have a dollar amount in regards to what you have budgeted, and how many are you actually looking for instead of some?
So we have a ballpark of right around 100,000, depending on how the pricing comes in. We're thinking 12 to 14 SCBA's.
Any other questions for the chief on this?
Judge, can we go back just one step to the last contract? I sort of made a recommendation, and Squire Sebastian did too, about number of renewals. Was there a willingness of the court to change that for one automatic renewal?
Chief, do you think that would be a problem with this contract if we just did it for one automatic renewal and then it would come back in front of the court?
I can reach out to the representative I've been dealing with and
Yeah.
see if they can change the language. I don't think that would be much of an issue.
Does it, and sorry, I don't have it open to that, but I think it just requires that you let them know so many days in advance
days.
if you want it
Yep.
changed,
And they'll send
correct?
notification to us 45 days.
That's what it
before the
says,
renewal
so
of
I think it's automatically, I mean, you can, I don't think you have to change the actual contract. I think you just say we want it to end, correct?
Correct.
Squire Tanner?
She brought up a very point I was going to, you can terminate it in 30-day notice, or they can't either one, so 1 year technically. I had some concern about that section too, because if you don't do that, they have an opportunity to change it. Because the initial one says it's gonna be 1 year, and the next one says it automatically renews without 30-day notice. So if they're gonna change it in any way, raise the price, I guess, is what we were talking about. They gotta give you how much notice before that? Is that 45 days?
So as long as we're under contract, there will be no changes to price. Now, if another renewal come about, then that notice 45 days in advance would also include a price adjustment.
But you can terminate it in 30 days.
Correct. So if they come in 45 days before our contract was due and said, this, program's jumping $1,000, we could say, no, we're not gonna renew that, we'll go a different route and look at different options.
What's the will of the court? Is that okay with everybody? On this contract, I guess? And it's a point taken for you, Squire Sebastian. I do think we need to, and I think we've seen that, especially being 6 months in, we're seeing all these contracts come in front of us that haven't been looked at in decades, literally. So I think it's something that we have to address. Absolutely.
I'll just say this. When these contracts have to renew, they have to come to this body. They are not determined in an administrative fashion. And this body is responsible for the funds that come to it for protections to persons and property. So there is a reason for this body to eyeball that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good morning, Amy, our treasurer.
Good morning. So this next agenda item is the fourth quarter report. It's the final for the year, and it has been submitted to the Department of Local Government. So I've got the totals for you for year 2023. Receipts at $31,938,000. Expenditures at $33,281,000, leaving us with a shortage of $1.3 million. And then if you bring it on down, our fund balance with reserves is $21,235,000. But it's important to remember that deficit of $1.3 million for the year does include ARPA. Those are funds that we received revenues in previous years. We're spending it now. There's also some activity in there for the road facility, which we had a resolution that when that bond comes through, we will reimburse. So once I take those things out, sort of want to give you an idea, taking out the ARPA expenses, also taking out the expenses for the road, also removing the opioid revenues, our deficit comes to $246,771. And then the question is, what's that make our reserve? So here's our reserve balance as of year end. It's $11,120,156. So, that deficit, I did want to talk to you a little bit about that. Our revenues didn't cover our expenses for the year. But, Judge and I sat down and sort of talked about the year and some of the high points of the year and what went into that year. It's important to remember, the first thing is that I believe it was in January, the court decided to use reserves to pay for a park what was that?
Schematics,
The
I guess.
schematics. So we haven't paid that in full, but that is a portion of that. We paid $1 million to the Humane Society for their facility. Important to remember, terminations for this past year have resulted in vacation payouts, sick time, or vacation and comp time payout, sick time towards retirement. That's almost $180,000. We also had a 3% increase effective mid-year. So, all in all, with those things, I think that you have to factor that in. But important to remember as we go forward, as we probably in the next month, we'll be looking at tax rates. It's just important to remember that those revenues, we've got to do something with the revenues. I think we've done a good job trying to get the expenses, making changes within to keep those expenses from increasing.
Questions for Amy on this? Squire Tanner.
It's not on this, it's just for my information, and I'm sure everybody here knows, but on your receipts, it shows general fund all the way across here, the amount of receipts, but it shows in the end that we're down from 31.9 to 30, from 33.2 to 31.9 on the totals for 23. Which one? Are they, any of these categories up there that are significantly different? For general fund, road fund, jail fund, fire fund, et cetera? Because you have the totals, but you don't have them broken down.
No, I don't have that in this spreadsheet comparing fund from this year to last year, but I can tell you, it's across the board. Mainly your ARPA fund has a big expense this year, the 1.1. But no, it's across the board. The expenses are higher.
No, the receipts. The receipts are not the expenses, but the receipts.
Oh, the receipts. I'd have to do that, and I can run that
That's not a big deal. I
spreadsheet.
just wondered
Yeah.
if one of those is more significant than another one on the receipts.
So Squire, you'd like to see that compared to last year's?
Yes,
Basically?
yes.
Yeah.
I can do that.
If you could do that and send it to the court, that'd be good information. Squire Wisman.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. You do a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm wondering if you could break down just a little bit what our reserves are, everything that makes up our reserves, that 11 million.
Well, I'm not sure I understand. That's your total reserves. It's not obligated.
I'm just clarifying that that's not including the ARPA
No, it is
funds
not.
or the opioid settlements.
It is not.
Just making that point, okay. I am concerned and very cognizant of the deficit and why I didn't vote for a budget this year that I thought had a little too much of a deficit for what we could afford and what's going to be probably brought in revenues. So I'm just, I suppose, eager to start having a conversation about what we can do and some projections on insurance premiums, other revenue forms where we can tweak to look at better revenues, because we have a lot of projects our community wants, a lot of things to do that we don't have the funds to do right now. So thank you for pointing out that that 1.3 million is significant, but I'm glad that you broke down that it's really 250,000 effectively that we didn't expand things for special projects that we want to invest in out of some other funds. So that makes me feel a little bit better. That, I believe, seems to be a little better than some of the previous years prior to the pandemic, that we were having a larger deficit than that even from recollection. But so maybe we're on the right trend is my comment. Thanks.
Squire Sebastian.
Amy, how much does this 246,000 represent out of our overall budget? Less than 1% that we're off?
It would be less than 1%.
Less than 1% that we're off. So I think our community and this body needs to be mindful that this body has done a fantastic job of managing and working with our treasurer, who has done an absolute fantastic job, coming in after a treasurer who's been here for 20-plus years to absolutely get her arms around this and work laboriously, not only on this, but also serving with 2 other hats on. I can't thank you enough for what you've done for us. But I'm also appreciative of this body and appreciative of our treasurer who can come in and say that we are over less than 1% in regard to revenue expenditures and revenue and expenditures when they balance out. So I can't thank this body enough. I think that is a fantastic roadmap, and I would put that up against any other community in the Commonwealth and other budgets in the Commonwealth. I put it up against the Commonwealth, I put it up against the plant boards, I put it up, who all have larger budgets than us, the school board, to see if they could even come in close to this. So I'm happy I voted for a budget, and I'm happy that we are providing great services and we're able to bring this in at this number. So kudos to everybody and kudos to you.
Squire, I'd like to add kudos to our employees and our people, heads of all of our departments that are really working with us, really work through this current budget, and I know we're gonna do well this year, and there's a lot of things going on in this community, the economic development, things like that I think we're gonna start seeing the numbers increase. So yeah, I think it's to Squire's best point, is kudos to everybody on this court, but all of our department heads that have worked with us to be, mindful that numbers are very important, and we all want to be successful and balancing and doing big things for this community. So it's encouraging. So thank you for all you've done. I know we have a new grant writer coming in, and it's going to take a load off of you, but I want everybody to realize the last 6 months you've really stepped up with Deputy Jack Kennedy here to person that position, I guess whatever the political correct term is there, and we look forward to her starting and taking some off of you. So well done. You have another agenda item.
So the next item goes hand in hand with what we just talked about, but it's the financial statement for the year. It shows all of the balances. This will be in the State Journal once approved by the court today. So it will be published. So if you have any questions from the community, feel free to reach out to me and we'll go over those.
Any questions from the court on this? Seeing no questions, then keep moving.
And then lastly, it's the revenue and expenses as of July 14th.
Any questions? See no questions. Amy, thank you very much.
Actually, it's not last.
Oh, okay.
I have a question for, I don't know which category it fell in. So if I might, it concerns.
Microphone, please.
Oh,
Get us in
okay.
trouble again.
It concerns the $10 million bond issue that we supposedly sold on the 27th. Is that correct? Did they sell?
It was the 26th. It did.
What was the interest rate?
3.89, I believe. It came in under what was projected. They thought it was going to be 4.
3.9?
Yeah, 3.9 basically is what it came in at, yes. They were very happy with that.
Is that, do we figure in, I know we probably budgeted a payment for that sometime next year, is that correct? I'm sure it's correct.
We did. We put that in the new budget.
Do we figure that in the 3.9%?
Now I did it at 4.19.
Well, that's 3/10.
Slight savings. We were very happy with that rate.
Okay, thank you. I just hadn't heard what that rate was. I knew when they were supposed to sell. I never heard they sold, but I heard they were going to sell. Thank you.
That's probably my fault. I know there were 6 companies, I believe, that bid on it, which was a whole lot more than what usually bids on things. So they got good, but the rates went up, I think 4.2, but I think we locked in at 3.8.
What was this probably should have been asked earlier of the bond council. What was their fee? Is their fee 0.5%? What was that?
We negotiated down to 5.
5?
That's $50,000, I think.
50,000?
Yeah.
0.5%. Okay. 50 basis points or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
Squire?
Just a quick question. Thank you, Judge. You said we had budgeted at the number
One.
escaped me.
4.19.
19, okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, next one.
And then this is our first budget transfer, and it's for planning and zoning, and you have the detail for it. It's just a refund. We don't budget anything into that line item, so when these refunds are very rare, but they do happen. So when we have a refund, planning and zoning reaches out to me and asks for a budget transfer.
Questions? Seeing none, thank you now. Alrighty. Next, we have payment of claims. Kim, would you like to speak first?
Court, this morning, a bill came in at last minute. It's regarding the United States Treasurer. It's on Form 720. We have to pay that by a certain deadline.
You just received this like yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Squire Sebastian.
Yeah, thank you, Judge. On page 1, 015081-398, which is contracted service for the Judicial Center, there is a water treatment. What type of water treatment occurs at the Judicial Center?
Is it the heating and cooling?
I don't know. I'm asking. I don't know.
I don't know. You do know.
I'll have to double
I
check
just
on
I
that
don't know
one.
what that is.
Oh.
Robert might
Somebody
know.
might know,
Yeah.
just to help us understand what that's
For the
about.
heating and cooling.
It's just the heating and
hydraulic
cooling.
system.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to,
But Squire, I do want to take this time to thank our new maintenance director, Greg Fry, because if you all knew last 1 or 2 courts, this room has been extremely hot. So I talked to him last week, I said, something's not right. So he thought it was a thermostat, he got a thermostat yesterday or the day before he got up there on the roof, realized it was a heat pump, something was wired wrong. So he was able to fix that completely himself, so it just kind of goes to show that I feel like, and I know Jack would say the same, that we've hired the right person who is saving us money on a daily basis. So I just want to commend Greg Fry for his work well done here.
I agree with that. He's doing a
Yep.
great job.
So, didn't mean to interrupt you, but it was a
Fantastic.
perfect
No.
opportunity just to throw that out there.
I have another question on page 2 under the general fund. So in account 0153300507, there are a number of funds allocated to general charity and welfare. So the agreement, that this body talked about an agreement and putting that in place with the funding recipients, and it would accompany the budget allocations. So has that occurred? Are they signed? Did they come back? Do we know
Judge, I can
what the status of that is?
Go ahead.
Yes,
Thank you.
I did come up with an agreement.
Thank you.
Jack, or Deputy Judge, and I went over that agreement that went out with the letters, the award letters, and they signed that and basically said that they were a nonprofit, that they were using that for public use, and that they would provide detail as to how that money was going to be used. So if you see a payment for a grant, that has been returned. So, and any time that I get the updates, I will send those out to you as I did last budget year.
So Amy, is it safe to say if somebody requests money and they have not filled your form out, they don't receive the money?
Right?
Okay, just
That's
wanted to
correct.
make sure. Thank you. You have another one, Frank?
Yes.
Okay.
For the jail fund, 035101-343, so are those medical services, is that just cleaning up the end of the fiscal year of '23? Those lump sums that are in there? Do we know?
The West Kentucky,
Uh-huh. Is that just cleaning up the end of the fiscal, usually things lag behind, or is this month's?
that was for the month of July and August. It's all current.
Okay, so that is no. So it's July and August. And is this staying in line with where we're hitting our cost pool? Are we hitting it? Because we had a lot of conversation about that cost pool and how the overages hit our budget frequently. So do we know if all that's lining up and staying within that cost pool window?
I believe so. I'll have to check with Jake on that.
Okay. That just seemed to be a point of concern for the body when we were discussing the budget about the overages and the cost pool.
Yeah.
And making sure the cost pool had the appropriate amount in it so that we weren't constantly coming back and.
It might be good for the same committee that maybe looks at the contracts to maybe, after quarter, after, 6 months, and we look at everything just to see what's, we don't get any surprises at the end of the year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just,
I would agree with
just that point.
Yeah.
So, and remote, the data processing equipment there, this remote monitoring management, I'm assuming that's just that's in 03-5101-705. That's probably just a standard monthly fee to monitor something like what we talked about today. I mean, it could be similar to, where they're using the phones to click.
Yeah.
It could be something similar to that.
Yes.
Just a monitoring. Certainly that has to happen at the jail, we know, so. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions for Douglas Squire Westman?
Judge, I just could, excuse me, finding something. Page 3 of general fund court bills, the mowing lien releases, we have $368 in those, which is what, do we?
I'm sorry, where are you?
Page 3 of the general fund court bills. Mowing lien releases. Can you just elaborate a little? Those are for recording of the release, but is that reflective of a broader number of liens that we're holding on properties? I suppose I'm asking, where's the reporting for how many of those kinds of things we have outstanding?
Clerk, would you know the answer to that?
That would be a Max question.
Okay. I'm wondering if that sort of clears up a number of outstanding issues, or if this is indicative of a much larger kind of expense that we're looking at some other properties.
So what you're asking is these release fees that are you asking if there's a grand list of all the liens that have been placed upon properties in
Yeah.
Franklin County because of mowing? Not to my knowledge. Not that I've seen.
Okay. That's something I'll bring up then. Thanks.
Anything else for our clerk? All right, seeing nothing else. Authorization to go into closed session per KRS 61.8101F. Discussions or hearings which might lead to the appointment, discipline, or dismissal of an individual employee.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are now in closed session. righty, looks like we're back on. We're back in the open session. Next agenda item is authorization to hire a firefighter. Any discussion on this item? Seeing no discussion, other business. Anybody have any other business today?
I think we had some discussion about that. Judge, can I?
Well, Squire Sebastian's first. Go ahead.
Thanks. I guess another business, I just want to encourage people to come out to the Franklin County Fair, which runs through Saturday, July 22nd. I just want to make folks know that there's an ice cream social today at the library. That's from 11 to 6. Also today, starting at 4 o'clock, there's a Homeless and Housing Coalition of Kentucky meeting. There's a fair housing workshop. That's going to be at 2nd Street School in the cafeteria. K-State's hosting a STEM open house at the Harold R. Benson Research and Demonstration Farm. That's going to be on July 29th from 9 to 3:30. That's a really great opportunity, and they're going to have some hands-on things like operating drones and talking about shrimp farming and aquaculture, etc. So that's a really good opportunity. And then got to put a plug in for Spellapalooza August 11th at Thornhill, and I'd say Kelly has something she wants to talk about this weekend. Thank you.
I just wanted to invite everybody out, well, maybe, possibly. I'm going to run out of t-shirts, I think, at this point. The Fuller Center for Housing is doing the bicycle adventure this weekend, which actually does not include riding bicycles, just so everybody understands. We're doing repairs on homes, on 4 homes this weekend, one of which is actually just a lot that we're cleaning out so we can build a new home for a young man with 5 children that he is raising alone because he lost his wife in childbirth. So we're very excited about this, and we invite everybody out. We're going to have a safety meeting and planning meeting at Capital City Christian Church on Versailles Road at 8:30 Saturday morning. I'm hoping I'm getting all this right, or my husband's going to get all over me. So we're going to do that on Saturday morning. We're having a cookout Friday evening to welcome all of the bicyclers that are coming in to volunteer with us on Friday evening at 6 o'clock. So please come out, and you can actually get on Facebook and go onto the Fuller Center's Facebook page and let us know that you're coming, though, so we have enough food and so that we know that you want to volunteer and we have a project for you to join. So, thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Squire Dykes. And then Andrew, let's make sure that gets shared on the Fiscal Court site also, and probably the website. Squire Westman, did you have something?
Yeah, Judge, a couple things. I'm wondering if we can ask Mr. Hewitt up to give us a little bit of an update on the comprehensive plan timeline. You know, I was on a selection committee 4 years ago when this process started, and we're supposed to update these plans every 5 years. And there's been some comments and some things going around just about how long the process is taking, and if Mr. Hewitt can maybe give us an idea of why and what part of the process we're in. There was a little bit of a delay for a housing study that will be presented next week, right? So.
Thank you. So the Comprehensive Plan Committee has a consultant, of course, and there was a timeline associated with their contract. The consultant was keeping on track with that timeline, and then members of the advisory committee did not feel as though they were getting adequate participation and input during those sessions. So the advisory committee asked if we could start to have more frequent meetings in the absence of the consultant so that they can be more, play an active role. So we have been doing that. It was a very lengthy process to get just the future land use categories and the language associated with those worked out. That's still not 100% complete. However, we have moved on to revising the future land use map. We are over halfway there. It was a very slow start. The first meeting was just a way of getting the air into the room, you know, and just everybody having their say, but now we are actively making the changes. So that portion is going quite well. But I advise the committee that, you know, take as much time as you need to get it right, because this is extremely, extremely important. So they are not, you know, they're not dragging their feet whatsoever. We meet roughly, well, we had been meeting like every 2 weeks for 2 hours in this room. So everyone comes here now. And then we put the map up on the monitor, and staff meets in advance of those advisory committee meetings. We make recommendations to the map, and then we go over that with the committee, and then they vote those up or down. So, we're focusing in on corridors and quadrants just so you're not eating a watermelon in one bite. But I would just caution anyone that wants to rush the process that that's when you make mistakes and that's when you overlook things. So, once again, they need to take their time and get it right. This is the first major update in 20 years. So it's worthy of its time.
Can you speak a little to what your anticipated timeframe is now at this point, and what the next steps, especially for any of the public, to be able to see things like a suggested map?
So the advisory committee meetings are open to the public. Anyone can come, and some do. I don't have a timeline on that because we have been focusing on areas outside of the city. So once you get into the city portion, I'm not sure how much that's going to change, but we're looking at known growth corridors in the county and working through those. So I really don't have a timeline on that. The next steps would be establishing the goals and policies and getting those adopted by the legislative bodies, and then completion of the rest of the exhibits that go into the comprehensive plan, and then a presentation to the planning commission for adoption.
If I just make a comment, the comprehensive plan is truly intended to be the vision of our citizens for our community, taking into account, obviously, that many of those citizens own businesses and things, but there's just been some noise in the community about certain segments having more input and certain segments wanting to have more input in that process. And I'm glad to see that we're taking our time, being methodical, and including the citizens and the people of our community, and making sure that their voice is expressed in this, and that it is not going to be a document that serves one portion of our community more over another. So,
well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a concern. It's always a concern when you're preparing a document such as this. As I said earlier, the advisory committee, and the first time that we met to work on the map, we didn't do any mapping, okay? Everyone had to get to know one another, understand their background, what their likes and dislikes were. So we had to work through that. It was almost like going through a counseling session, in my opinion. Everyone had to get to know everyone else and where they stood. And so that actually was the first meeting and half of the second meeting. And then there was the third meeting when we actually started looking at a map, or working on the map. So in my opinion, that advisory committee, it's a diverse group, but they are working as a whole now, as opposed to when the consultant was active. They were at tables, and that's when people began to segregate, and you started to see the clans form. And so that's why I invited everyone to come here, because there are no tables. Everyone has to sit here. So, and that just opened everything up. So I appreciate you bringing that up, and it is a concern, something we need to watch out for. But as much public participation and opinion as we can get, the better the document will be. So encourage everyone, if you talk to them, come to our meetings, go to the distilled, whatever, to get distilled Frankfurt or something like that, or the website for the comprehensive plan. They can see meeting dates and
that's where those meeting dates are if the general
Yes.
public would like to come to. It's generally in this room from now on.
It's in this room from now on.
So if they would like to come here and see the maps and how the development is going, they're open to do so.
Yes, and I have the maps saved on different dates of those advisory committee mapping meetings, so they can see transitions of what's occurred. But yeah, so I don't always have the meetings at the exact same time, to allow the opportunity for people to come after work, whether it be advisory committee meeting or members, or just members of the public. I have it so that some are during the day, some are in the late afternoons, and they typically run 2 hours. But we're here as long as someone wants to discuss.
Robert, could you work with Andrew and put those meeting dates on our website also?
Be more than happy to.
Yeah.
More locations, the better.
More than happy. If you don't mind, maybe on the main page, if that's
fine.
okay?
That's fine, even if it's the next one, it doesn't have to be all of them, but
Sure.
just so people know.
Okay.
Squire Tracy, you got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work on this, and then I was just gonna ask JW, I think he's our rep on the advisory committee, if he has any.
He's on the steering committee.
Steering committee hasn't met, steering hasn't met in a while, and I believe we're due a meeting. I noticed an article in this morning's paper, and I think we need to get back in front of it. I think Robert has got a really good handle on it. And I agree with him. This is the guiding document for our community for the next 10 years, probably 20 years, 30 years. What happens in this document will affect Franklin County forever. So it isn't something that needs to be rushed, but at the same time, it's something that we've want to make sure that it's a diverse group of folks and it's not leaning in any direction other than the whole of the community. So, we do need to meet soon.
Yes, sir.
So-
I'll work with Mr. Cockley and get that scheduled, that way we can
Thank you.
keep you up to speed.
But I also want people to realize that the comprehensive plan is the roadmap for what we want, but we're not actually rezoning. I had somebody pull me aside the other day and said, I heard you're rezoning the whole county. I said, no, it's just a mechanism to try to guide the community. So I want people to realize that. We are not rezoning people's land and things like that, because I had a very awkward conversation the other day. Squire Tracy.
So you have an advisory committee and a steering committee, and can you explain to people what roles those two committees have, especially considering it sounds like one hasn't met in a while?
So the steering committee was established to provide the guidelines and the principles of how the process will develop, okay? The advisory committee was established to be the actual working group. All right, so there's, I think, 20 members on the advisory committee and 7 on the steering committee. So the documents, each phase of the document will then be presented to the steering committee. Say, okay, here's what we did, here's how we did it per your direction, and then we get feedback from the steering committee.
So with that being said, and I think you referenced that you're about halfway done, would now not be a great time to have the steering committee look at that instead of giving them a 100% document?
Sure. So the map's still in draft form, and we've gone somewhat, we're going counterclockwise through the county. So we can present the draft of what we've completed so far. We've made notes on the map and explain to the steering committee the mindset of the advisory committee as they prepared that document. So I will get with Mr. Cockley. We will get something scheduled as soon as possible.
And again, thank you for all you're doing on this.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to do it, and it's an exciting time. It's turned out to be a great document.
Good. Any other business?
Yeah, well, just thank you again, Robert and Judge too, for I think the change to bringing it into this room has made a difference. And what I'm hearing from people that are on that committee and feeling that their voice is heard. So I commend you all for being proactive in that change and
Thank you.
and taking a more active role for the county, I think, is a countywide document. While we have Mr. Hewitt up, I wanted to ask, a few years ago, there was a watershed committee that was sort of established with the city. Robert, we've talked about it, and I think it's apt time that we maybe look at revising, recreating a committee that will actively start looking at, this body sort of had a discussion a couple months ago about creating some setbacks at a minimum to protect our creeks and streams. But, as I said at that point in time, there's so many things that go into that we really have an opportunity to create something brand new that starts looking at how we protect all the streams and waterways, clean them up, create opportunities for tourism and other recreational uses, how we then start cleaning up our sewage problem around this county and getting assistance for folks to be able to have some grant funds to be able to create systems to manage sewage and other runoff. Really big thing that we can start tackling, but I think the only way to do that is to recreate a committee, and I know Squire Blackburn previously served on it, and I would like to as well, if we can authorize establishing that committee and get some of the public engaged too. And I have been working on an ordinance for the immediate, I think some of the most pressing thing to bring forward for us. But again, there's so many of those other elements to start considering, and there's so much funding out there that we could be utilizing better. And really, I feel like a lot of this should have been part of the comprehensive planning process anyway, because we're going to have a lot of ideas and changes that are probably going to impact that whole document in the end. But we all know this entire county is basically a watershed into the river, right? They took all the good land away from the county for agricultural purposes and made it other counties. So just a critical one if we can authorize to create that committee and start tackling some of that.
I would appreciate and be happy to work with a formal committee established. This is so critical that we look at it from a watershed basis, because there are funds available for things. I mean, you know, there are watersheds that are problem areas for emergency management, for first responders, and we need to look at those in a holistic way, not in a, oh, well, this pipe's too small. We need to look at the bigger picture. And so this committee, I think, is going to be extremely beneficial to this community to help us look at these issues, identify them, and come up with solutions and regulations, much like we have in the Slipway Branch watershed. It's been very successful, and you know, all the developments are all in agreement to the standard, the new standard that's been set, and I've not had any pushback. So it's a success story that I want to further, so I would welcome the committee.
I just want to piggyback on what Squire Westman said and what our planning director said. You know, the recommendations that can come out of the committee can help drive some of the things planning and zoning does. I know you all can raise standards for certain things above and beyond, and I think that's been successful. And like you said,
Yes.
there hasn't been pushback with that from the developers, the people that would normally think, oh, you're making us do too much. But I think they understand the quality of development addresses those issues. And I know Robert in emergency management had kind of laid out flood sensitive areas, not, you know, necessarily flood zones, but areas that are sensitive to flooding and big rain events. And I've got several in the second district, I know we all do. But, you know, in dealing with emergency management, the road department, when those guys have to get up and put a cone out because we can't cross a road, or, you know, I've got people in Stonelay, there's areas on Duncan Road, there's all kinds of areas that are directly affected. And I don't think we can do enough to make it better. But I think it's a good start. And like you said, with the opportunities for grants and monies to help us address these issues, you know, label them is one thing, but then what can we do to make it better? So I think it's a great idea.
Well, to remind the court, you know, I met with Congressman Comer, and I'm hoping he's going to pick up that Slickaway Branch problem. You know, that would be a huge thing. How does everybody feel? And I think it's a great idea for Squire Wissman and Squire Blackburn to work with Robert as a committee to kind of identify some areas and try to bring some things to the court to look at.
Can I ask you, is this different than the Stormwater Task Force? So is this would be different than that?
This would be different, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. I'm just trying to see how all that plays together, because I've been talking to Mr. Otis about some things with that, so thank you.
So is everybody good with, we don't need to vote or anything, do we? Just to form a committee, maybe? Everybody's good? Okay. Good deal.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Rob, sorry, I have one
Yes.
more question. Do you all plan on getting these maps back out into the public? I know that there were several spots that you all originally got out in showing people.
The conference plan,
Yes.
future, okay, yes.
Yes,
So are you asking, are we going to go back to satellite meetings?
yes, just to give people updates.
We had, the committee has not discussed it. We did it on a staff level last time.
Okay.
We're happy to do it. Perhaps we could go to the areas that we've already drafted and the committee has come to a consensus on. Like I said, it's counterclockwise, actually started in the second district, so we're happy to do that. Like I said, we're all the way around the Louisville Road now, so we could do, you know, 3 meetings and in 3 quadrants.
Right, I just think the more information
Sure.
that's shared, the better off.
Yes, but once again,
Everyone
we have not gone inside the city limits yet. We've stayed in the county.
Right.
All right?
Robert, do you think we could, since it's in this room, could we go ahead and live feed or record those and put them out there?
Definitely.
Because it's open to the public. I don't want to,
Correct.
I don't want to turn it into, Q&A on the public, because that's going to be too much to manage. But I think it would be transparent for us to go ahead and record it and/or put it live as the meetings are happening, just to show that we're all trying to work together to make this the best plan we can do.
That's a great idea.
Okay.
And maybe we get some more feedback, if, allow folks to comment on there.
Hopefully it's positive.
Yeah.
But yeah, but exactly. So if you could work with Andrew on the
Yes.
next meeting, and we'll get that on our website, and then we'll, we could even maybe store those somewhere on the website if somebody wanted to go back and watch something. So,
That would be great.
Yeah. Where it is.
I was just gonna ask the question, how many people generally showed up at one of these advisory council meetings?
We usually have about 12 or 15 members present at all times.
What about public, any
We have just a small handful of the public that comes.
same ones?
Typically, yes. Now, I have individuals come see me, privately, to talk about their property specifically, and then I bring those to the attention of the advisory committee. But not a whole lot of folks are from the general public coming. The attendance out in the satellite meetings was
Is that a
favorable.
reflection of nobody's interested, or is that just lack of knowledge of when the meetings are?
Well, in my experience, it's only when someone doesn't agree with something that they show up.
Mine too.
Yeah, to Robert's point, we need to encourage everybody to show up, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I think it's up to us to get that out in the community.
I've had a lot of interest expressed, and they just don't know, and I didn't know when to tell them the meetings
Right.
were. So.
Yeah, I think putting it on our thing and advertising a little bit more would definitely help, so.
And it helps with the conversation that you had. They think they're, the separation between a zoning map and a future land use map.
Exactly. It's all just educating people. Squire,
Yes.
I'll just say, since we're on that topic, it is the citizens' vision of the future of this community. I always speak when I talk about these comp plans throughout the state about Lexington. There was a couple of years ago, there was a huge push by developers that they needed new land to develop more housing and all this kind of thing. And the citizens showed up to the comprehensive planning process and said, no, we don't want our urban service boundary expanded. We want to preserve the bluegrass. And it changed the entire conversation of that community and stopped the development in inappropriate areas, and we're actively working to preserve the bluegrass region. This is our one opportunity for our citizens to say exactly how we want this built. If we don't want an industrial park somewhere, the citizens decide through this comprehensive planning document, and it is effectively a legally enforceable federal contract, federally mandated contract between us as the elected officials and our citizens to develop this community the way we want it done as a body, and not what maybe an external developer wants for this community. So we've had a lot of problems with that over the last 20 years. It's the first time we're writing with a full rewrite of this thing with an external consultant that is knowledgeable in the area. So I'm excited about the way it's going to go in the future. And I had something else, but maybe they may have related questions.
Okay, Squire Tanner.
No, mine's not a question. Mine's just more of a statement that the comprehensive plan hadn't been redone in 20 years. The people need to be active in getting it done. It's very important to this community that it's redone, and it's done. I think you made the point, we shouldn't just rush something through because we need to get done with it by X day. We need to make sure it's right, because it's gonna have to stand for 20 more years probably.
Yes.
I think the growth and future of this county depends on the comprehensive plan, and it should be done. My biggest thought, this is a thought, this is not a question, is if you go downtown and ask 25 people that they know what the comprehensive plan was, you might have one that knew the answer, somewhat of an answer. Maybe, and I don't know how you get the point across how important it is, other than just keep on doing it and putting it out. You should be interested in this.
Yeah,
'Cause
land use planning is-
even though you don't have everybody stakeholders in the whole thing, you still have people that should be interested in what it is.
That's true, because it impacts everyone in this community in some form or another, whether it be traffic or job opportunities. I mean, this document lays all those things out. And land use planning is pretty foggy for most people. It can get very confusing.
I think people, it's the same reason people don't get involved in all kinds of things that we do. They don't understand what's going on, and we don't educate very well. So I think putting it online and having people understand what it is we're talking about even is really helpful. And asking them to become involved in their own community is really, really important. So we need to continue to do that.
I agree. With that being said, maybe we could put something out on, do an interview with Cable 10 or have Andrew assist with like an educational thing that Mr. Copley and I could work on and put it out there, because it's so easy to grab your phone right now and watch something. I mean, even if it's just like a 30-second educational series, you'll get a lot more views that way than you would if you did an hour-long type thing. So
The process is, excuse me.
Go ahead.
The process is, once this advisory committee makes the recommendation, it goes to the planning commission, up or down vote, amendment, or whatever they want to do with it.
Correct.
I don't know if there's a time frame involved in that either. But once they get through with that, it comes here for us to adopt a plan, or I don't know whether we have the opportunity to amend it, or even if we wanted to. But that's the process. Is there a time frame once you submit to the planning commission till it gets to fiscal court?
No, sir.
Not a time frame on it.
No, sir. The time frame is that the community has to revisit the document every 5 years. You can re-adopt it, you can amend it, or you can totally rewrite it, but you have to do it every 5 years from the adoption of the prior document. That's the time frame in the statute. So if it takes you 10 years.
And it hadn't been done in 20 years.
I'm sorry?
And it hadn't been done in 20 years?
Well, we've done it every 5 years. Now, the one time when staff was directed to do the tweak, it took 5 years. Now, we had a committee of 40 members, and it was very laborious, and staff did all the mapping, all the exhibits, and it was a challenging exercise, to say the least. But 5 years was in my opinion, way too long, and it was a battle just to get it adopted. And then so after that, the next round is when the recession hit. We're like, staff was like, well, not much is going on. Let's just leave this alone. Let's let it rest. And so they readopted it, and so now everyone agreed. Everyone at the table agreed. It's time for a complete revamp.
Judge, I'm just going to, I want, in case, citizens are watching on Cable 10 or otherwise or online, I want everybody to sort of understand better what this thing is. This drives almost every decision. It's not just, where we put an industrial park or land use planning, right? It drives what grants we can apply for. We need some basis generally for many federal grant opportunities that we can bring into this community. It's where we define where we want new park spaces. It's where we want to build a new firehouse because the population has changed and we see that we need a new location. I mean, it truly directs almost every action of this body, and every single action that we take formally often references, does this meet the comprehensive plan in some form or fashion? So I just want the public to understand that. So,
and it's called comprehensive plan for a reason. It covers everything.
I'll go ahead and ask the other thing, Robert. I wanted to ask about the housing study that's coming in. If you can give us sort of a quick synopsis. I understand that it is scheduled for the 25th at 5 o'clock at the Franklin Plant Board. I would have liked them to come to the Fiscal Court independently, maybe give a presentation, but maybe this meets the standard. I don't know if you had much conversation with the city before. It was originally planned for today, right? And I wondered why it wasn't coming before this court meeting.
There's a conflict, and the city didn't ask us for input on the date.
Right.
So it was changed because of that. The mayor and I did talk about them coming to do a joint meeting to present, but we thought, to be transparent, we'd want to invite the community, so we just figured we'd all do it together at the same time.
That's perfect. I knew that background, but I wanted to state that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
I just wondered.
That's kind of quick background of it.
Wondered if, Robert, if you can give us a little bit of sort of what to expect for the public to come on the 25th. I've already had several people asking, when's that happening? Can I come? Can I get that information?
Okay, so what you will more than likely hear at this presentation is a lot of, about a lot of data, okay? There was a lot of data collection in terms of market analysis, population, household income. So all those statistics together were the basis for this study. And so really, at the end of the day, the consultants are going to say either you are in need of housing type X and Y and you are in excess of Z, or some combination of that. And they're not going to say build a house here, build a house there. They're going to say the market shows that you are in need of this type of housing in this market range, whether it be rentals, owner-occupied, condominiums, townhomes. It'll cover all of that. So
It's a great point of clarification that it's not going to tell us where to build things, but it's going to tell us generally, based on our population, our socioeconomic status, otherwise, what kind of housing we're missing to meet the demand. And we all know already that there's a shortage of low-income and affordable housing in this community.
there is, most definitely.
Squire Blackburn.
Yeah, I was just wanting to piggyback on that. They will be giving recommendations.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Anything else for other business? Seeing nothing else, let's just roll right into the voting session. Clerk, please call the roll.
Squire Sebastian.
Here.
Squire Blackburn.
Present?
Squire Dykus.
Here.
Squire Tracy.
Here.
Squire Tanner.
Here.
Squire Wisman.
Present.
Judge Mueller.
Present. Authorization for approval of minutes from the regular meeting of July 6, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive county clerk's quarterly report for quarter ending June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve an agreement with Life Check Systems.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Who seconded it?
Motion passes. Authorization to approve a resolution with Farmdale Sanitation District regarding the Farmdale SD Interceptor Sewer System Phase 1A project as 2022 HUD CDBG application number 22-042.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes.
Judge,
Ma'am?
can we just ensure that the typo?
The changes are
the
made,
changes have
yes.
to be made in
Yes, we will
Thank you.
double check it, yes, absolutely. And I also want to thank Bluegrass Ad and Karen Leverage for coming today, so they've been a big help on that project. First reading of an ordinance relating to the reapportionment of magisterial districts. Second reading of the vote will be July 31st.
Noted any comments or requests be sent in to be added to the minutes? Is that correct?
Well, I believe that,
He asked that.
yeah, but what was changed so far was the number on the third district. The map number was going to, take over what was printed.
Right.
And then the four houses, I think that were in question between Squire Tanner and Squire Sebastian was going to be addressed.
And if anything else arises, send in. Thank you.
Jeff, usually, don't we typically need to read a synopsis of the ordinance to have a reading or a brief legal question? Instead of, we just said first reading.
Max? Huh?
You can read it.
Typically, we have an abbreviated description for first reading.
Do we have to publish a synopsis in a paper?
Yes. Alrighty. So.
I don't think it has anything but the title. Actually. Don't you just have to read the title, sir?
Just in time.
Okay. An ordinance relating to the reapportionment of magisterial districts. I could say, let's go ahead and say on June 18, 2023, the Franklin County Fiscal Court initiated reapportionment proceedings of the 6 magisterial districts pursuant to KRS 67.045. Okay. Authorization to approve a resolution authorizing the filing of an application for grant funds with the Leary Firefighter Foundation for the Franklin County Fire Department.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve a subscription agreement for pre-planning and hydrant software.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to advertise for sealed bids for self-contained breathing apparatus, SCBA.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's fourth quarter fiscal year end financial statement report for the 12 months ending June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's financial statement for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to approve budget transfers fiscal year 2023 to 2024.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Authorization to receive treasurer's report.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Payment of bills. Is there a motion offered to deny any payment of claim? Claims are ordered to be paid. Authorization to hire Colby Tucker as our new firefighter.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes. Welcome, Colby. Authorization to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you.